Best Ball has been thriving for a few years, consistently growing, new sites, new contest offerings after an explosion a few years ago. But 2026 might just be the year that we have a huge shakeup in the best ball landscape. We're going to talk a little bit about what DraftKings is doing, seemingly trying to take over the best ball space. What does this all mean? There's some new contests out there, all the good stuff for the best ball sickos. And then, of course, we're going to draft some best ball teams because that's what we do. Let's do it.
Three, two, one, liftoff.
All right, GM, sorry for the live viewers. Some microphone issues, could not for the life of me. Hopefully it's working. The testing said it was working, but if you can't hear me, by all means, speak up. Oh, what a great question. J Mike, greetings, Eric. One win from your week so far. It's Wednesday, and the old despite the fact that I've been under the weather the last couple of days, started feeling a bit ill on Monday with sore throat, just typical like springtime kind of. I don't know if it's allergies or the flu or whatever. I did just see my nieces and stuff over the weekend. We don't have any kids, but it's my nieces over the weekend, and you always wonder if it was the children and stuff that brought the germs to you. But started to feel a little bit sick on Monday, but we've been powering through. We've been doing a really good job of taking our medicine, dare I say, and still working out, still getting good sweat going, still eating right, getting good sleep, all of that stuff. Okay, good. Glad to know you can hear me. Before we dive into a little bit of what the heck is going on in the best ball world, I wanted to have some of this conversation because tomorrow, for those of you who are not aware, is when the NFL schedule gets released, which for us best ball sickos is sort of like a, if like, I guess like week 17 is Christmas and maybe opening Thursday night is like Thanksgiving. I don't know where you rank your holidays, right? But the schedule release is maybe like 4th of July. I don't know, however we want to rank our holidays, but it's up there on the list, right? It's definitely somewhere probably on Mount Rushmore because it's fun to see when it matters most for us as best ball players, who plays who. We'll talk about that tomorrow and Friday, of course. Same bat time, same bat channel here, 11 a.m. Eastern, Tuesdays through Fridays. And of course, if you are not a member of the Spike Week community, using the Spike Week tools, hopping in the Discord, there's an incredible conversations. I was reading this morning, thousands of messages from a bunch of sharp best ball players. You'll see the draft hacker and the draft optimizer and draft IQ and everything on all of our shows. You get access to that, plus rankings, et cetera, et cetera. $39.99 a month, $200 for a calendar year. All sports, right? It covers you want to play World Cup best ball. You want to play, later there'll be MLB playoff best ball. I'm in the NBA playoff best ball streets. We cover it all here at Spike Week. I believe somebody called it the OG best ball tools. It's true. We were the first. But sort of segue into that, we've been doing this a long time now. And before we get hot and heavy into the week 17 matchups and all that stuff tomorrow and Friday, DraftKings has been, flexing their muscle a little bit with some contest offerings, promos, and certainly on social media, kind of, they got an and one and they pulled out the big guns. And I thought it'd be something interesting to discuss because we're all also sort of thinking about from a business perspective, I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff, but where do you want to spend your money? What planning ahead for the summer? No one has an infinite bankroll, right? Even the super rich people don't have an infinite bankroll. Like what do we want to do this summer? Are things changing at all in the best ball landscape? And honestly, I think that they are. First thing you have to say, dude, there's nothing here is a slanderous or whatever. I'm just speaking, what has happened over the course of the last 5 years or so. And I want to shout out to Underdog for, I wouldn't be here if this industry wouldn't really exist if it weren't for Underdog. truly groundbreaking stuff, an incredible company, incredible product. But where we are right now is different than maybe what we would have expected a few years ago, and we'll discuss that. Shout out to Drafters, has been like the under the radar number 3 on the list for quite some time. Shout out to Fast Draft for coming and bringing some more options for us with also some unique, innovative offerings, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of what we'll talk about today, of course, is DraftKings and probably some underdog related. If you have just sort of been, maybe you're not on social media, or you're just living a normal life like a well-adjusted human being, there might be some things that you missed over the years, and certainly recently. But first, as you saw, it's on the thumbnail, right, where DraftKings just launched several different NFL best ball tournaments. First, which we talked about a few weeks ago after they launched it, but their Millie Maker, right, this 20 million is the biggest. So they launched the single biggest fantasy football tournament that has ever existed. A $20 million prize pool, 3 different people, 3 million to first, which has happened before on Underdog, but 3 different millionaires, like insane, like truly the most insane fantasy football tournament we've ever had. But they also just have recently launched a whole bunch of other stuff. I think as a pretty big step forward in competing with an Underdog who is still very good at, right, the phrase of when puppy, and having more, these other 3 max, 20 max, low dollar stuff, having a really nice sort of catalog of options for the best ball player. And DraftKings, I think, has sort of started to step up in that regard. And so you see a bunch of different stuff, right? Obviously, we have that $3 20 max, which is a really fun tournament with a $3 entry, $60 with $1 million prize pool. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. They added some new stuff. This $9 3 entry max, right? They have a bunch of these $7 5 entry maxes, a $5 single entry. I'm particularly excited about this $10 10 entry max, right? So $100, but it is a $400,000 prize pool with $100K to first. Plus, it's a little bit tricky to get through your playoff rounds, but it is only 54 people in the final, and even if you max it, right, you 5x that max entry fee by making the final, and you have a 1 in 54 shot at 100K. So that's a pretty sick tournament, I think. And then just some $15 single entry, and then some of these other ones that they have. They have some good high stakes tournaments. $100 3 entry max with a 500K prize pool. There's a really nice, again, catalog, like sort of options for everybody at any price point. And so, like, why is this relevant? I think because this is a bit of a pretty seismic shift. I just want to say thank you. Kid Kick says, I got so much rake back as I've only drafted when there are promos, and they're all like $10 value back. That's something else that I think is good to bring up, that they do. I haven't looked today if there's any promos or what have you. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Rewards. Let's see, promos. So we mentioned this one, like everybody gets a free entry into the $3. Everybody gets $375 back, aka 10% back if you max the Millie Maker. And then they're constantly doing some fun different stuff. Like this one is golf, but they'll do some different offerings sporadically to give you free tickets as well over on DraftKings. And again, so like, why does all of this stuff matter? It's because I think it appears to me that DraftKings is just frankly taking things a little bit more serious. As you saw, I don't know if you've been, so we've been around here at Spike Week with Best Ball Tools and grinding best ball drafts and stuff for about 6 years. And obviously I'm very passionate about this game. And obviously that has come with being really tied at the hip to Underdog, because while DraftKings is massive, they haven't really given a shit, frankly, about best ball for quite some time. They launched the tournaments. They're totally fine tournaments, but they're not posting on social media about being the top best ball company. Why would anyone play anywhere else but best ball? These are the things that they're actually taking maybe some user feedback into account. Some of these contests, they're caring a little bit. And like, why is this substantial? Well, for so many years, we've had underdogs sort of ruling the streets, right? And everybody loved Underdog. The drafting experience on the app was phenomenal. The product was good. They were great with the community, and they still are to a certain degree. But I think we've seen just a little bit of a step back in that regard. And I'm not speaking out of pocket. I don't think that's a hot take by any stretch of the imagination. And so if we didn't get a step forward from DraftKings, I think it would be a little bit of an awkward spot for especially for me, someone invested in this industry, but just for people who care about it. Like what does this mean? If Underdog is sort of plateauing, removing some contests, letting employees go, shifting to prediction markets, like, certainly not puffing out their chest anymore, about how they're going to go to war with DraftKings, and DraftKings still didn't care. I think we'd be living in a little bit of a different environment, but DraftKings is sort of leading the charge forward on this space now. And that was not the case, right? Even like 2 years ago was not the case. So like I said, this is like a pretty huge shift in the best ball space. This is not to say you have to play on DraftKings. Absolutely not. That's not at all what I'm trying to say, but it is a big difference if you've played in past years compared to prior years. And I just wanted to like, how did we get here? Like I said, before we get into 2026 week 17 matchups and all that fun stuff, which I'm excited to talk about the next couple of days, I did think it was like sort of important to discuss. So let's go back a little bit. If we go back, so like if you go look, so Jeremy Levine is the CEO of Underdog, right? And dude has been like one of the biggest innovators in fantasy sports. Like, we are where we are in large part due to Jeremy and his team and all the people that have worked with him along the ways, right? Going back to what Star Street and draft.com and obviously now Underdog and everything, just an absolute legend. But while things were right, these are like right 2023, 2022, these times where Underdog was like boomed, right? Basically like the second big year of fantasy of like Best Ball Mania and the big tournaments on Underdog. Just like the industry exploded, led by Underdog. They were crushing it. They're exploding. They're raising money. They're hiring people left and right. They're offering new contests, right? This is when when puppy stuff, we're filling 14 puppies every summer. They're coming up with, it was growing so fast, right? It's a total unicorn company. And so, their end goal, right, the same as everyone else's, is to not just be a best ball company, of course. You don't really make money that way. It's a great user acquisition tool. It's a great user retention tool. It's a great user like sentiment tool. People love fantasy football. It is not a useless product. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception about the role that like best ball and fantasy football and stuff play at these companies. People are just like, well, it just loses money. They don't care about it. And I mean, that's not really how it works, but in a simplistic view, right? You're not making millions and millions and millions of dollars operating a best ball a company. So anyway, so as they should, sort of, right? Underdog is like, I think we should be confident in like we can really take over this space, right? Where everybody loves us. We're growing like crazy. But the phrase that always comes to my mind, which is sort of fitting because it's a very big pun, is if you come at the king, you best not miss. And I think that ultimately sort of defines the last few years of best ball. And it sort of seemed like Underdog was coming at the king and they did not miss for a while. It sort of seemed like that, right? And so they were going to take over fantasy, and the fantasy was going to lead them into the sports betting industry. And, user sentiment around DraftKings and FanDuel isn't always super great. So like, could they springboard from this incredible, user loyalty, brand loyalty, and everything that they developed with the fantasy games into the sports betting market and like take that over? Like, you could sort of see the stars starting line. You could see how this thing might play out. But the problem is that it's not how it played out. And they went pretty hard after and talked a little bit of shit, right? To, you can go search the stuff here on Twitter. I'm not calling anybody out, but it's just true, right? Like specifically comparing themselves to DraftKings, talking shit about DraftKings, writing articles, right? That no, not this one, right? To like from the CEO about DraftKings and FanDuel are afraid of competition. They're campaigning against us, which they were. They're definitely no art, like they were lobbying. DraftKings and FanDuel and such were lobbying, but that's if you didn't have the foresight to see that coming, and then you just go and you start flexing on them and talking shit, like, that those are the types of things that unfortunately do happen. And so there was, this sort of puffing out of the chest of underdog for a stretch, and they went at the king, and I think the king is punching back now. And DraftKings has no real reason to like give two shits about the best ball space, but they're making it a point to care, and they do not care about losing money on rake and stuff like that. Like they churn so much money every single day. Like let's go look at just go look at a DFS lobby. So there's baseball right tonight, pretty big slate. Tuesdays or excuse me, Wednesdays are big baseball slates. So they have a $320,000 baseball, 60, 100, 500. We got millions and millions of guaranteed prize pools in baseball. They're they pretty much always fill still every single day. And this is just straight peanuts to them, right? Compared to sports betting and casino stuff and all that. And 1-800-GAMBLER, all that kind of stuff. I'm not condoning playing, the slot machines on your phone or any of that kind of stuff. But it speaks to where DraftKings sort of is, right? As a company, and they can sort of dominate best ball if they want to. And they never really cared before, but they seem to care this summer. And so I do think it's a pretty big deal. And then, we have underdog is sort of now left figuring some things out. The sports betting thing hasn't worked out. They are, they cut jobs. 20% of the underdog employees were cut as they sort of pivot to this prediction market thing. It feels a little bit like I said, go at the king, swung and missed. And now we're sort of scrambling a little bit to figure out what is our new, we can't get into the sports betting space. We got locked out by the king. We got knocked out by the king. And now, we got to fire people and all this. So we're going to focus on AI, and we're going to focus on prediction markets. And so I have the utmost confidence underdog is going to figure this thing out. I still think it's a really strong company. I'm not, I'm very positive about their best ball games this year. I think some of the innovation that they've displayed is incredible, but I also think it's important. Like if I'm going to sit here and, be a tout, and right, there's tout competitions and everything going on. Like I also shouldn't just shill, and put my head in the sand when stuff is going on in the industry. And I think it's a genuinely, if you've been around for these, this is year 7 essentially of the modern game of best ball. If you've been around, this is like this is a big deal. Like it really is. Like DraftKings giving a shit, the biggest gambling company on the planet, giving a shit about best ball. Actually, it's like a big deal, and it's good for us, right? If DraftKings wants to compete and other people want to try to compete with them, that's good. That's really, really good for us. That's pretty much all I have. We're going to hop into some draft. If you guys have a specific tournament on DraftKings you want to draft, I know they have some new ones. I'm totally down. Please put it in the chat. I got, we can do the Millie, but we can do this. If somebody wants to fill this $9 3 max or whatever, I'm open to anything that we want to play. Let's see. DraftKings is just the best DFS site. One of those things you can't prove, but is true. DraftKings smelled blood in the water and pounced. Let's see. Do you have time to go buy backfields? I agree. Oh, wow. Shout out to our friend Dan from Scotland. That's amazing. Uses sleeper for private leagues, total points wins. Am I right? Drafters is total points rather than pods, so better for ADP tracking my position. I would say yes. I would say answer yes to that question. And it seems like Underdog's total points format definitely didn't fill. It overlaid by a ton last year. It does not seem DraftKings is at all interested in offering the total points. So if you want to fill that void, we do have drafters, right? That is a cumulative scoring. That's what I like to call it. Cumulative scoring, total points, whatever phrasing you want to use. And great site. I highly recommend. I mean, like I said, I still recommend Underdog. I recommend all of these sites, but I just thought it was an interesting little seismic shift as DraftKings just more and more and more is talking about best ball. Is talking shit, frankly, about best ball. Is pretty funny. Now the question is, when do you max these new tournaments? Is the question. That is completely up for each person to decide. There will be more tournaments later, but they're not going to open up like this button hook, right? $9 3 max. If you draft all 3 of those today or whatever, you're going to be waiting a while for another similar contest to open up. You can move on to the next. I sort of bounce around a little bit. I like to space out my entries in each different tournament. I don't think that that's right. I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong one, but I do think it's wise to like think it through a little bit and decide what you think is like best for you, right? Do you go from tournament to tournament? Like I'll do one $9 3 max now, one in early August, then one in the last week, or one when it's close to filling or whatever. Because I do think these are going to be the tournaments that we have for a little while because that's a shitload of tournaments out there now. I'm trying. Christopher, imagine having brand loyalty when trying to win money. That's sort of my thing as well. I do not have any DraftKings promo codes. You can Google it. I don't have any. It's been a long time since DraftKings has been doing that, but I'm sure there's probably something out there from some DraftKings partner. I'm not a DK partner, so I can't speak to that. Let's see. Oh, this is fun though. If you do play DFS, like I still play DFS. Sweetleaf got a Millie ticket from a 10-cent tennis DFS contest. That is pretty fun. That is pretty fun. Let's see. Consigliere says, sorry. Also, if I'm sniffling, I do apologize. I know the audio stuff can annoy some people because I'm weirdo. I see you got no crowns. Did you redeem for money or buy yourself something? I redeemed for money and placed a bunch of futures bets and stuff. So I need the Detroit Pistons to win the East, but I redeemed my crowns earlier this year. I generally like to spend them. But what I'll usually do is build them up over the summer and through the NFL season. And then like every spring and stuff, use them on generally sports betting. Sweetleaf is saving millies for the schedule. Single entry, $15. I mean, I'm totally down for whatever. I think it'd probably be better not for a single entry, but what about the $10? That $10. Where's that $10? The 10 max. That's a pretty sick tournament. Let's try that one. See if we can fill it. Oh yeah, 8 of 12. We can fill this sucker. Good morning, warehouse. Yeah, Tutty is a totally reasonable one too. As Jason says, this has also been a completely valid concern. If I'm going to be like, and I didn't. The point of this wasn't even like to hype up DraftKings. It's just like awareness. Like I think we should, as best ball players, be aware that like, oh, DraftKings gives a shit now. That's nice. That's good to know. I think this is another good sign that some concern, totally reasonable and understanding concern, was that DraftKings, how much do they really give a shit about monitoring these things for and this is always a concern that people have, and it's an understandable concern. What I will tell you, I clearly don't know specifically how the sausage gets made at any of the sites, but they have rigorous like anti-collusion and stuff processes in the back. Now, is it perfect? Are they perfect? Absolutely not. I've seen the stuff. I think it was last year that people were posting like, look at this DraftKings draft. These people are clearly colluding. Definitely. Things will happen. They're far from perfect, but I think that they give a shit more now. And ultimately in best ball, I think you're just going to have some of the little bit of weirdness. And like, We want them to cancel people that are colluding. 100%. We don't really want them to cancel weird drafts, right? Like if someone in the draft is doing something far from ADP, but they're not cheating, they're not colluding with someone else, it's that weird fine line we have to walk in best ball, that as long as these sites can feel confident these people, they're whoever is drafting some wonky team is not cheating. This is a peer-to-peer game. Every single person should be allowed to draft like whoever and whatever they want on their teams. As many, right? Like, I don't like the fact that they limit the amount of positions that you could take. I understand why they do it. But like, if someone thinks that drafting 15 wide receivers is correct, why? Like, they may be stupid, but that's what the peer-to-peer game is. If the fish want to come in and lose their money, we can't regulate the losers out. It's like this. We complain, right? The royal we, but everyone does. Me too. Complain about the sports book, like limiting winning bettors. This is a sort of backwards way of limiting the edge of the winners if we're canceling drafts just because they're funky. Like, that's the whole point. I'm playing against people who are going to draft shit teams, So I always struggle with that one, because obviously we don't want cheating, we don't want collusion, we don't want the integrity of the contest to be put at risk. But we also don't want to regulate, we're going to regulate the edges out of it. We're going to regulate bad players out of it. I don't want that either. So much. I've been drafting so much Justin Jefferson, but whatever. Let's do it. Yeah, it'll get. What happens if someone comes in and drafts 17 quarterbacks? It'll get canceled, and maybe it should. Maybe you can convince me that it should get canceled. I think within reason there are certain insane things that should get canceled, but I don't know. If you start to see somebody, right? If I'm in this draft and this guy who just took CD at the 112 takes Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, it's on me to figure out, what does this mean for the court? Like, maybe I need to reach for some quarterbacks, it's peer versus peer. I'm playing against these other people. So long as they're not cheating, why should we restrict what they're doing? Again, within reason. I understand. It's not black and white. Let's see. Eggers started Cook, Barkley, Olave, Devontae. Yeah, what I do love about DraftKings, you can get some stuff that you just simply cannot get on other sites. Okay, 20% of my Jefferson has London on it. I don't have McBride. I don't have Chase Brown. I don't have Bowers. Let's do Bowers. I don't have Bowers yet on DraftKings with Justin Jefferson. That seems dumb. That seems dumb. Very dumb. This is incredible. Kid Kick says, I only max out the milli with tickets I win. I'm on year 3 of ticket maxing. This is a promo maxing and ticket maxing. Incredible. 21 tickets. I need to get. Do they have? You can tell how close I've been paying attention. Do they have satellites for the for baseball? Fantasy Baseball Championship. Blah, 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 blah. Golf milli. NBA Finals. Doesn't look like it tonight. So that's what I need. I'm not a tennis expert. Maybe they're lower dollar stuff. I can only play I can't play in the super low dollar stuff anymore on DraftKings, which is a little bit of annoyance. I'm in the 4-hole GM shorty stuff. What a great name. Maybe a sauce after. I'll put it in the chat. Put it in a chat in a bit for it. You got it. That we can do. What did you say? Oh, Puka Train McBride. That's well, you're off to a start that I can't sauce all that well. B Fred, if you had to pick 2 running backs between Genty, Ken Walker, and Amarian Hampton. Ooh. I'm gonna give 2 answers. He asked between JT, Genty, Ken Walker, Amarian Hampton. Cheating answer is if you're telling me to predict who scores the most points, I'm going to pick Jonathan Taylor and Ashton Genty because they go the highest and they're going to score. I think I would project them to score the most points. If you want my answer for who I like the best, right? If you had to pick 2 at their cost, which is a slightly different, not a big deal, but a slightly different one, and like you're most excited for, which is not necessarily like the best pick or whatever, but right at cost, and I'm just really hyped up for, I would pick Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton. The full PPR, as you mentioned, is a pretty big deal in this sort of equation. I think, hold on. Sneeze number 1. We'll see. I'll get a ticker going of how many times I sneeze or whatever. Genty is a good receiver and caught a bunch of passes last year. I think the sort of receiving part of his profile has been forgotten a little bit because the Raiders were so shitty last year. Let's see. Ooh, now Jacobs is one. I'm going to do Brees, another guy I like a little bit more on full PPR sites. Justin Jefferson, Bowers, and Brees. But I'm just really excited for Genty with Clint Kubiak, with Mendoza, with an upgraded offensive line. I think it's just set to be a smash year for Genty. And then Hampton, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I'm a little bit more concerned about, right? He has Keaton and Vidal, and the Chargers have a bunch of weapons. And like, what does the exact backfield share look like for Amarian Hampton? But at the end of the day, he's a second-year player, first-round NFL draft pick at the running back position who's whatever, what's he, like 6'2", 220 or some shit. Like, he's insane. Amarian Hampton. He is 6 foot, like 6'2". This is just Wikipedia. So it's, like 6 foot 220. He runs a 4.40. Hold on, wrong down. He was a good receiving prospect, like a reasonable enough receiving prospect in college, and specifically he's on the Chargers, who are like, every time I draft a team that doesn't have a Charger on it, I kind of feel upset. It makes me feel naked and afraid that I don't have any Los Angeles Chargers on. It's my favorite team to draft. And so if Hampton like goes scorched earth, like even in like Keaton is playing and maybe Vidal is playing, but he just goes straight scorched earth, I could see it. You can make the same argument for Ken Walker and JT, and they've sort of already done it. But those are the 2 guys I'm most excited for. Astro says, late to the stream, had to attend a corporate meeting, but we are hyped about DK Best Ball offerings. Yes, we are. It's a good, these kind of things, these kind of, like I said, sort of like seismic shifts-ish. God, I can't breathe. Okay, I took Bowers already. So let's do, 25% of my what teams have Bucky? 27% of my Bowers teams have Bucky? That seems stupid. Then let's scroll down and get J-Mo here. Lad would have been nice, but just one thing I like to do with the Draft Hacker, right? You see all these are like combinatorial. So the first percentage, I'll say this a bunch of times over the summer. I apologize for repeating it. You just kind of have to, repeat it for, you never know who's listening, new people that understand whatever. For me, and tomorrow after we get the schedule in here, right, in this middle area, you'll see the week 15, 16, 17 matchups, and those will highlight with correlations, right? It'll light up blue if it's a player who I have his quarterback It'll light up, I think, orange. I have orange, I think, for if it's, they're playing against someone in week 17, whatever. But my percentage stuff is like my overall called slate percentage across all of the DraftKings tournaments. What percent of this player do I have? And then the second one is the percentage of the times I've drafted them with my first round pick, then with my second round pick, then with my third round pick. And then it sort of keeps going with like, here's your percentages with your first and second round pick, your second and third round pick. So I'm not like necessarily drafting off any one individual of those percentages, but it just keeps me aware of, right? Like Bashal Tootin down here. You have 24%. Okay, no big deal. 20% of your Jefferson teams have Tootin. That's fine. I've drafted 24%. Tootin, 20%. Jefferson team seems fine. But then you're like, oh shit, 75% of my Brock Bowers teams have Tootin on them. Is that something I want? Probably not. So then that makes the decision a little bit easier, down the road, right? 100% right here. Jaden Daniels, 100% of my Brees teams have Jaden Daniels. Sorry. I feel like I'm dying. I also feel like I told my wife this morning. I've actually been getting good sleep. I drink quite a bit of water as it is, but I've been really drinking a lot of water. Like I for sure get in about a gallon a day, pretty much every day. We've been drinking more than that the last couple of days, trying to flush all this shit out of my system. And but I feel, and taking a million OTC meds, but I feel like I'm at the point where I'm definitely Evans. Okay, Evans 20%. JJ Evans. How about Travion? I haven't done a lot of Travion. I'm not like super jazzed up about his price, but something I really like to do. Somebody mentioned earlier of buying backfields. I think the Patriots one is a pretty fascinating backfield to buy. We saw last year, for anybody that doesn't know what buying a backfield is, it's sort of the old school handcuffing thing, except with a little bit different, where we're actually sort of taking the not split backfield, but sort of, right, the backfield splits, the committees, the whatever you want to call them, the ambiguous backfields where we don't exactly know, like, is it Jalen Warren or is it Rico Dowdle? I don't know. Draft them both, because there's a lot of ways that those can win, right? It's Ramondre for a month, and then it's like what happened last year. So it's sort of Ramondre for a while with a sprinkle of Travion, and then Ramondre goes down, and you get Travion like RB1, like superstar for a stretch, and then Ramondre comes back, and now, right, Ramondre was on Sam Sherman's winning Best Ball Mania team at the end of last year. He was an incredibly valuable asset, especially we're talking about full PPR. He was the pass catching back also on the Patriots. You can sort of have these weird ways that a season plays out as it pertains to NFL backfields, where having two different guys in the same backfield actually is really beneficial. It feels like you're like cutting off your ceiling or introducing extra risk, but you're really not. And a lot of the times you're guaranteeing yourself a sort of a floor, and sometimes guaranteeing yourself a real ceiling as well. What's my next pick is 79. What is Ramondre's ADP? 79. Okay. Tyson. Ooh, I love Jordan. I should look at running back or wide receiver though. Or God damn it, quarterback. We'll do Jordan Tyson. And we'll see if we can get Ramondre or not. Joseph says, agree with the Patriots run game this year, improved O-line with the draft and free agency. Yep. They also signed a relatively big contract to a fullback, Reggie Gilliam. That's also, for all intents and purposes, we are assuming that they're going to get A.J. Brown on June 1st, which obviously is not directly relating to the run game, but drastically improves the offense, right? If you have, Stephon Diggs was fine last year, but I think if you insert AJ Brown and Romeo Doubs, hopefully Kyle Williams takes a step this year, right? You still have Pop Douglas, you still have Matt Collins. I think it's clearly a more talented wide receiver room. And so you just add all this talent influx. The schedule is going to get much harder this year. They played a really cupcake schedule last year, but it's sort of offset by the price and those offensive upgrades that we talked about. All right. One sneeze, one blown nose in 40 minutes. We'll see how we can do here. Jason did his first Travion Ramondre yesterday, and not sure he liked it. One thing I've discovered about myself with buying backfields is I like it. Like, and whether or not we like shit, like, you know, if we knew if the teams that were our best teams were always the ones that we liked, this game would be super easy because we would just draft teams that we like. The problem is we're wrong a lot, and the stuff we don't like can also be successful. And so I feel the same thing. I don't know how much I love it at these prices, but I want to try these things out. And I've noticed that like a hero-ish or like we called it a cheap hero running back, like a Brees or Javonte, Jadarian Price, DeAndre Swift. Some God damn it, somebody took Ramondre. Hopefully the last time I ever say, damn, somebody took Ramondre. Wow, that's a hell of a fall on Caleb. I mean, he doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on my team, but I'm intrigued. I am instead going to do Tony Pollard here, I think. I can try to buy the Titans thing. But what I like is right like a zero running back team or like a what the hell did we call it? Hawkeye. Last year we called it Hawkeye because Hawkeye is technically a superhero, but he's pretty weak ass superhero. He's got a fucking bow and arrow. But like in a Hawkeye team or a zero running back team, buying these backfields, I think feels better, right? I like it better. Does that mean it's better? You know, that remains to be seen. But I do think it's a great way. It's one of the greatest ways to like get your superstar firepower at wide receiver, tight, right? I take Justin Jefferson and Brock Bowers, and like now, how can I manufacture both the upside and the floor at running back when, like, look, there's two teams, the 10 and the 11, both took 3 straight running backs to start. Like, they're beating me at running back, so I'm going to beat them at wide receiver. Now, how can I catch up to them at the running back position? Is, you know, we never know exactly which backfield it's going to be, but if we take shots across all our portfolio, you're probably going to hit on some of them, right? It gets a little quirky year to year, but most seasons, like the Patriots last year, I love Travion. If I just drafted some Ramondre on my Travion teams, who knows where I would have been? Who knows how my season would have gone? Better. That's for damn sure. You don't have to take this big stand on every single backfield. This is fair. Cam says, hold on, let me make a selection. Of course. Oh, Mahomes. Sorry, I'm taking Justin Herbert. Because I am on a Herbert bender. Cam says, my rule of thumb is the ADPs need to add up to 200 to have both running backs from the same team. That's like totally reasonable. I prefer it cheap, but it really restricts the amount of backfields you can do this on. And that is just not how a season plays out, right? Like, you would not have done Travion and Ramondre last year with this. There's only a few you would have done. What? Dowdle and Chuba. I would actually say most of the backfields you want to do this with don't add up to 200 in terms of ADP. Some do. Minnesota looks good. Washington looks good. I think Tennessee would fit this. There's definitely some that do, but I try not to. It's a rule of thumb, like you said. It's not perfect. It's not binary. I try in everything in best ball. I've done the thing for years, like making rules. I gotta have I gotta have X wide receivers by this round. I gotta have to spend this much draft capital on quarterback or whatever. And I think most of that is the only thing it does. Oh wow, damn! Mahomes falls all the way back here. Do I take Mahomes at this crazy discount and skip the QJ stack? Let's try that. Let's see what happens. Jefferson, Bowers, Brees, J-Mo, Travion, Jordan Tyson, Tony Pollard, and then Herbert and Mahomes. Yeah, see, like I like Tracy Scattaboo. I like Chuba and Brooks. Doesn't quite get you to 200, but I think that's one of the strongest ones. This is definitely very rich one, but basically these rules that we create, straying further and further away from them. Not because I think those types of things, allowing us to have like a list to check off for like, okay, here's I need to have X amount of wide receivers by this round. I like this stupid ass strategy that Erik, shout out to Big Country and the other guys in the Spike Week Discord that came up with this. I did not come up with this. I stole it from them, which is why you need to be in the Spike Week Discord. I just became obsessed with it after they brought it up last year. This checklist of stuff. You're like, well, I this strategy is good, but I can't do it with this backfield, or I can't do it with that, or whatever. I think it limits you too much, like having these set in stone rules within a checklist. Obviously, we can't cover every possible backfield combination. We can't cover all of it, but I try to keep myself open to just about like any form of structure, because I've been very rigid in the past, right? And for anybody that's followed, if you're new here, you're seeing a different Erik, more early running backs, more whatever. But I still lean a little bit away generally from the early running backs comparatively. Let's see. I have Bowers. I don't really want to do Kelsey. I guess Worthy makes sense here. Let's do Worthy. I need a little wide receiver juice, more than tight end, of course. And I can do Trey Harris later. I can do, Keaton. But we're 2, 3, 4, 1. Justin Jefferson, Brock Bowers, Breece Hall, Jameson Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan Tyson, Tony Pollard, Herbert, Mahomes, Worthy. Yeah, Tootin Rodriguez. Where it really gets fun. Yeah, this is such a good point. Like, so like I mentioned the Patriots one from last year. And the thing is, what's hard to explain is in this. So this is what I love about this game is you can go back through data and all this shit and, find almost anything you want to find. What I think is the most powerful is not like macro level trends of like how many points does the second quarterback add or the third quarterback add, or should you take 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends or whatever, and like looking at these macro trends and all that kind of stuff. It's not that is not valuable. What I like to see is scenarios that play out that are like these sort of outlier type things. Now that sounds funny, right? But I don't mean like who's the next Puka and who's the next Kyron. I just mean like, right, like the Dolphins. So what happens when these two backs are reasonably priced? Because we don't, right? The reason why, Mostert, Achane, and Jeff Wilson was the RB3, I think, that year. The reason why these guys are priced cheaply is because A, we don't know which one of them it is, which probably means all of them are going to play. We don't know which one of them it is. And on them, we were excited about the offense, but we hadn't quite seen the Dolphins like really explode just yet. It's like, isn't that such a good situation? Like you could get both guys having good weeks in the same freaking week if all things go according to plan. You can get, right, that year was like the Mostert Achane season. Achane's rookie year was like the greatest dream possible scenario ever for you. Actually, if you had it to do over again and you said, I'm going to draft 150 teams, I have to do something on all 150. well, A, you would have taken Kyron and Puka, but B, you would have drafted Mostert and Achane on the same team every single fucking time. And so that is something I'm, being more open to is sort of oh, wow, Kelsey now too, huh? Damn, man. I guess I am going to do Kelsey. Mahomes worthy Kelsey. But scenario-based stuff is like killer in this game because it's never really fully baked into the market. When people are doing all their historical studies, it's not something that comes up, right? Because it is scenario-based. It is not macro trend level based. Everybody's how many tight ends are on the field and, how many quarterbacks should I draft is like the conversation so much. And it's that's fine. But what really wins in this game, right? We talk about Michael Wilson all the time. And like now you're having to draft Michael Wilson. And where did he go here? By like the 7th round, 8th round, 6th round? Where the hell? Anyway, not important. Right? Last year, did Michael Wilson get better? Yeah, I think so. I feel pretty confident that Michael Wilson got better last year as an NFL football player. Was it this crazy fluky shit that led to him getting 16 targets a game for a while? Yep. Could you have ever predicted that? Even if you said, I think Michael Wilson is going to get better. I believe. I liked Michael Wilson as a prospect. I believe. Could you have ever predicted that specific? Hell no. Hell no. Damn, man. We got a thin group of. I'm going to put Pacheco in the queue. Yeah, let's do Pacheco. I have JMO. I like the secondary stack stuff, which can also help open up some of those scenario-based upside outcomes. Right. That's no one says, what if it gave Michael Wilson the confidence he needs to be great, et cetera, et cetera. There's like so much of what happens in an NFL season is not only just unpredictable, but like we can't even really fully explain it even when it happens. It's like, is Michael, and because if we knew the answers to those questions, the next year's draft would be super easy, right? Like, oh no, Michael Wilson's like actually a star now. Or, oh no, that was like mostly a fluke. He's just he's still Michael Wilson. It's like, how can anyone possibly know? No one knows. I'm not sure Michael Wilson knows. Michael Wilson might be confident in his abilities, but but that's the fun, right? And so, but if that's the stuff that wins, what happens a lot of the time is our takeaways, mine too, to a fault, will be like, dang, what did I miss on Michael Wilson? When in reality, it's what did you miss on? Like there was some chaos that could have happened here, right? Like, how good is Marv? What if Marv gets hurt? The Arizona Cardinals don't look very good. They certainly look like the worst team in that division. They might have the worst coach. What happened? What happens? When these things go, like I drafted at 25% Trey McBride. So if I had just said, I know you don't like Michael Wilson, but on some of these teams, there's clearly scenarios where Michael Wilson would be very beneficial to have here, right? Because you're saying that Trey McBride is going to excel. Now, there's plenty of scenarios where Trey McBride excels and Michael Wilson didn't, right? That's why you love Trey McBride. I love Trey McBride for Trey McBride, but there's a bunch of scenarios amongst, right? If I draft 1,500 teams and I draft 25% fucking Trey McBride, that's a lot of goddamn Trey McBride teams. And I never drafted Michael Wilson because I was right. It was my stubborn player take when the scenario that could have played out was like, maybe your player take is right. Like I didn't love, trying to think of some players. We got to get Keaton on this. I got to get some Charger action going on here. Make sure I get Trey in the queue. Who took Tajay? Where did Tajay go? I really wanted to buy one of these backfields, you sons of bitches. Oh, he just went. Of fucking course he did. 147. Oh, Takai, of course, Takai. Andrew says I could see Arizona pulling. So what's fun? I'm so glad you said this. You could see in Arizona starting back. I'm terrified of the Cardinals for 2026. Truly freaking terrified. Like everything that happened, they didn't resolve any of the issues that made them such a bad team, that made them this dumpster fire down the stretch. But what they did, right, last year it was Kyler or Jacoby Brissett. Say whatever we want about those two guys. I would not like to start my franchise with them. They clear a certain bar of competence with quarterback play. That if all things go to shit, you're still going to get like something out of your offense, even if everything's gone to shit, right? We saw that with Jacoby Brissett. If you make Jacoby Brissett drop back 48 times with really only Michael Wilson and Trey McBride to throw to, he can still get the ball to those guys. Now they have more mouths to feed. They spent all their money on running backs. Hold on, 162. Okay, he goes at 1. All right. Samson, Slippy, Slappy, Swami. Jeez. How about a Jonah Coleman? Haven't done much of that. And I can hammer a bunch of wide receivers here the rest of the way. But like Carson Beck is bad. Carson Beck is not good. JP Acosta, who I very much like as an NFL mind, during the draft was like live posting about like just every pick breakdown, and his thoughts on that player, the landing spot, whatever. And when the Cardinals took Carson Beck, he basically said it was a trash pick. And he said the Carson Beck, his elbow is cooked. He can't move anymore, and he can't throw outside the numbers. But he's a more cerebral now than maybe he was, and he's experienced, and he is accurate over the middle of the field. He said his ceiling as a football player is the current version of Kirk Cousins, which I thought was, if that's not the most telling shit about what kind of prospect this guy is, then I don't know what is. And so I do think if everything goes poorly, why wouldn't you go to Carson Beck down the stretch? I mean, I would if I were the team too, and I drafted him at the top of the 3rd round. But that's very scary. Like, because now we have Marv, now we have Jeremiah Love, now we have Algier in there. They brought Connor back. There's more mouths. What if everybody stays healthy and we get worse quarterback play? Like now, all of a sudden, it's not looking so fun. I'm just gonna take Trey here now, just to make sure we get him. I don't trust you fuckers in this draft. Let's see. Yeah, the Cardinals can lose. The Cardinals are going to lose just fine with Brissett, partially because no one asks, is their defense any better? No. They spent their resources on running backs, backup quarterbacks, and wide receivers. They didn't really invest in the defense is going to suck. They have the most expensive running back room in the league between 3 guys. And they have Brissett, Minshew, and now Carson Beck at quarterback. It's just pretty bleak despite all of the talent. Now, those guys are talented. McBride, Jeremiah Love, to a lesser degree, Marv and Michael Wilson. So, like, I'm not fading them, but I'm being pretty cautious right now. Same thing with Algier. I'm being pretty cautious on the Cardinals. Let's see. Yeah, totally. Tyler says the same can be discussed like in terms of buying backfields or whatever. Yeah. So what I like to call these, we can all like it just we have to come up with names for shit, right? But he said like wide receiver and tight end combos or wide receiver combos, whatever. Like secondary stacks. So if you have Dak, great. That's a primary stack, right? If you don't have Dak, you can still correlate with the other people on your team like this. Like I'll take Tesla, right? I do not have Jared Goff, but I have Jameson Williams, I have Isaiah Pacheco, and I have Isaac Tesla. If they're on the Lions, they could all be good, right? If no chaos shakes out, they can all still be good because the Lions could just be good on offense, and the Lions will be good on offense. But what happens when Amon-Ra goes down? What happens when Gibbs goes down? What happens when both of them go down? Right? Whatever. It's like, well, maybe you actually didn't really want Goff without Amon-Ra and Gibbs, but you got all the other guys who are soaking up the targets, obviously Laporta. But you get the point, right? Like, and no one's predicting that, but it's like a free roll. It's like a free roll. So like we think correlation and stacking is good. Okay, that's good. You bolt on these guys and it gives you this extra little sliver, right? What are we talking about? A 2% chance, a 1% chance. Guess what? We need the 1% things to hit for us to win like all this money, right? We talked about Sam winning BBM last year. He somehow in the most insane way snaked his way through the regular season and the playoffs with a team that didn't have most of the like league winners, didn't have most of the, you had to have this guy in week 15, you had to have this guy in week 16. He like snuck his way through. And then what happens? Derrick Henry goes for 45 in the finals. You need that kind of stuff, right? Ramondre isn't a great advancement pick because he missed a bunch of time in trivia and went ham, but Ramondre's back and has a big week in the finals, all that kind of, you need these sort of chaotic things, right? Michael Wilson, you need oh my God, Marv went down and Michael Wilson's getting 16 targets a game because the Cardinals suck. That's the stuff you need. You don't know which one's going to happen, but adding the possibility to benefit from that scenario onto any team is just, I don't see why anyone would do it. It's like, other than like, I only draft off my own rankings or whatever, I only stick to my own player takes. Like I'll never draft this player. It's like, I mean, if it were so easy to win that way, then you would already won. Me too. It ain't. I can assure you. Going on year 7. And it ain't that easy. Okay, 2662. Pretty good at tight end. Let's see. Oof, wide receiver is rough. Okay. Let's okay, well, I can get into some wide receivers I don't draft a ton of then. How about AD Mitchell? We drafted Brees. There's one. I don't draft a ton of. I don't particularly love, but the Jets kind of have assembled. Certainly not the Avengers, not with Geno there, but like, what are they? What was the other movie with Angelina Jolie? Angelina Jolie Avengers movie? Oops, no. I don't want to ask Google. Okay, got it. Oh God. No. Angelina Jolie Marvel movie. What was it? The Eternals. The Jets are like the Eternals. Okay. An awful version, but it is a talented group. They're not the Avengers. The story is not going to be as good. You're not going to enjoy watching it nearly as much as you enjoy watching, Endgame or whatever. But they are talented. They have talents. That's what the Jets are. The Jets are the Eternals. It's fitting that Brees is like my Hawkeye running back, right? My weak superhero, my weak hero running back. And then the Jets are like the Eternals that are just the lame heroes. But they are heroes, nonetheless. It's a fair question. Why does DK make every contest 1 of 12, 1 of 12? I kind of like the consistency, but it is not that at higher stakes, but in lower stakes, I agree with you. That is completely fair feedback. And maybe they will look into adjusting that. I don't know. I can try and reach out and see. Maybe since I said that they were taking over best ball on this show, they'll listen to me. Don't get your hopes up. Let's see. I don't have Panthers, right? Okay, let's. Some pretty nice Ted Hurst vibes just recently with the Bucks that had me thinking I'm fading Chris Godwin. I do like Jalen McMillan. They talked about how Ibuka is going to play Z and Ted Hurst is the typical X receiver. But I'm not sure that Jalen McMillan is the typical X receiver, and I know Chris Godwin is not the typical X receiver. So I'm not like going to go crazy with some Ted Hurst, but it did make me think like, okay, maybe I should toss a handful of shares, like on a team like this that sort of could use some late wide receiver juice, right? I think it's intriguing. And if he just comes on down the stretch, cool. Someone who had a UCL tear, I can tell you that it takes time to recover from. Yeah, one of my best friends tore his UCL back when we were playing. We played a lot of slow pitch, pretty competitive slow pitch softball. Yes, I know I was that guy, but yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it up close and personal, and it definitely takes time for sure. I think I do want to get to a 7th running back here. Do I have Malik in my bag? Yeah. I'm just taking Malik now. And then I got one more wide receiver to take. Massive Audio asks Hurst over Brazel. Brazel is also in my player pool. I believe I have Brazel ranked higher. I just have this is not a lot, right? But I have 5%. I probably should have looked at my optimizer, like you see. I need to adjust my optimizer. But I have 5% Brazel, and I already have, you see this 20% here. 20% of my Justin Jefferson teams have Brazel. I've not drafted Ted Hurst yet. And so obviously I don't have him on any of these guys' teams. So that's sort of where my head is at. It's kind of like how I like to break ties. You know, like Malik Davis is just a priority for me. Some of these guys, Justin Herbert is just a priority for me. Some of these guys are just priorities. And so it's May 13th. We got a long way to go in the summer. I'm not worrying too much about the combinatorial stuff with those guys. But when they're like sort of scratch off lottery tickets that are not going to be like a pillar of my draft strategy, Hurst, Brazel, AD Mitchell, Tesla, whatever, these guys, Jonah Coleman, I am going to look a little bit more at the combinatorial stuff again till break ties. And obviously we don't have any schedule stuff. So that's really the only thing I have for 2 more days to break ties. I will make one more pick, and then we'll take a super duper short break. I'll turn some sick music on, and we will hop into another DraftKings draft. I'm happy to put in the chat whatever contest you might like. I do not care. Let me find some sick music here. Let's see. Heartfelt. Ooh, that's pretty fun. Maybe we'll do that one. Okay, back on the clock. 2782. I think this needs to be a wide receiver. Let's see what we got here. Could do Brennan, of course. Where is shoot, I should have planned it. I'm going to do Caleb Douglas. 3rd round pick of the Dolphins. I can't believe they took him in the 3rd round. I don't think he's very good, but I think a guy that we need to have in our 20th round. Like, The Miami Dolphins don't have any good wide receivers. They drafted this dude in the 3rd round. I think it's just important information for us to act upon. I would love to fill a milli if anybody wants to fill a milli, but I'm open. Looks like we need. Oh no, may not be doing a milli. I don't know if I have the patience. Put on some tipper. Let's see. Let's see where the milli sits. 1 of 12. Well, how about one of the $3? Does anybody got $3 tickets at their disposal? We can do one of the $3. I got a freebie, and I think I've only done one or two, so we can do the $3. That usually fills pretty quick. 6 out of 12. That was a quick fill. As a hip hop head, do you ever run across Mac Dre? Mac Dre. I'm going to pull him up on this other screen over here. I don't think so. Let me see. Dang, he passed in 2000. Oh, he passed in 2004. So I graduated high school in 2006. So that could be part of the issue, but it's still technically in my formative years. I will look him up. Shout out Deadhead, first draft with the group. I'm in the 106. Similar spot again. Moxie in here. Deadhead Dave. I feel like I've seen Sneaky Pete over here before. Maybe this big dog as well. I don't know. Some of the names feel familiar, but it's also hard to know on DraftKings.com with so many users. Are there many more tilting things than double pass catcher stacking somebody rando snipes your QB? I've talked about this. I think my brain is just broken. Well, I know my brain is broken, but in fantasy football, if I'm doing it on a stream or something, I'm sure I'll say it like, "Oh, you motherfucker," or you sniped my quarterback. But it doesn't really bother me that much. I don't know. Like, I totally understand why it's annoying, and it is annoying. But something about it's like I just move on to the next. I don't know. It's like I'm getting, if I have CD and Pickens, it's like, this is fine. Like, somebody took Dak. Like, I'll just take. Right, I'm making shit up. I'll just take Mahomes and take him with Worthy. I'll just take Herbert and take him with QJ. I'll just take whatever, and it's fine. And I'll take Mendoza. Like you can just almost always. Sometimes bad things happen. You can just almost always move on to the next. And then you're like, I don't know. Now I have multiple different stacks on this team. And my quarterback is also stacked with other guys. So I'm getting all the benefits of still the Cowboys stack. It's just my quarterback has to hang in there with Dak. It seems fine. Any Rams intel on CJ Daniels is terrible. There's my Rams intel. I can pull up some data for you in a second. Okay, I took Jefferson last time. Let's do something fun. Let's pull. Speaking of the Cowboys, let's pull CD up to 6. I know he normally goes closer to the turn. Let's pull CD up and have some fun. My wife's gonna be wondering why I got Angelina Jolie up on my screen. College by player. CJ Daniels. Watch this. Watch how terrible this dude is. So, played at Liberty. Had the one awesome season at Liberty. 1,000 yards. Incredible elite efficiency. That was in his 4th year at a low level conference. Goes to LSU. Trash. Then goes to Miami. Trash. I don't think he's an NFL football player. This is $3, right? Yeah. We are in the play action on DraftKings. Shout out to DraftKings. I had a free ticket. I think this is only my second or third. Let me see. Hold on. Okay. We're good. DraftKings. So 32 total teams. Oh, that includes it. So I've done 2. This is number 3. This is number 3 in the $3. Something I will say. This is just my personal way. What I've always done, fitting for a middle-aged fantasy football streamer. I blew my load too early on the $3 every year, 6 years running. Premature draftulation on the $3 every time, and it's maxed by June. And I look back and I'm like, damn, I really wish I would have saved some bullets for how unbelievably soft these rooms are in August and September in that $3 when it's closer to being finished at the end. Just really could have saved some bullets. And so I'm going to try to save the majority of my $3 for later and just space out my Millie Makers and all the other ones across the summer. Is Andrews Kincaid enough at tight end for you guys in 20 round? I would say yes, but then no because of injury prone. I think it's fine. If you stumble across a pick that is a third tight end that you feel is just a really good pick, then take it. Don't force, but also don't force. Sorry, I'm trying to see. What did I take? CD? Okay. Yeah, I want to see what my opponent's CD Lamb teams. Okay, I'm on the clock. They generally have Trey. Okay, there's a decent amount of Trey McBride. London, nobody has Bowers with CD. So let's do that then. So none of my, not that I'm not saying it's like super unique, but I'm saying 30% of my opponent's CD teams have Saquon, right? As you can see, it's often over on this side of the board. And then McBride and some neighbors, even Josh Allen. What the fuck? But no Bowers. Something I like that's something I try to make sure to do, especially if I'm like getting a little funky. I'm going to draft plenty of CD. I actually only have 5. I have 5% CD so far, but I'm going to have plenty of CD because I have him ranked. He goes often at the close to the 1-2 turn or at the 1-2 turn. And so I'm going to have plenty. Then when I try to get some like different pairings with him, I want to make sure that I'm not still just draft right. If I just drafted Saquon, like let's say I pulled CD up to the 106 and then Saquon falls to me, it would be easy to say, oh, look at this ADP value I'm getting on Saquon. It's like, well, you partially defeated the purpose. Maybe you'll get a different combination in the 3rd and 4th round, but you've sort of diluted the whole purpose of moving CD from the 10 to the 106, which is to get a different combination of players with CD Lamb than everybody else gets. Not today. But Jeremy, come join tomorrow. We're going to talk some playoff schedule fun. Is week 17 all that matters? This is all I got in me. Until I'm recovering. I'm It's my flu week. I'm trying to recover. So I only got this one in me for the rest of today. But join us tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Join us Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. And every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the rest of the summer, I'll be here drafting best ball teams. If you want to come hang out and draft some teams together, I assure you, you'll have plenty of opportunity to do so. Okay, yeah, we'll take AJ Brown now. What? Okay, so see, this is not a lot of drafts, right? So it's not necessarily indicative of how it's going to play out, but across 32 drafts, my opponents don't have any Bowers on CD teams, and they don't have any AJ Brown on CD teams. So it's not a perfect indicator. We have all the data for drafters. We have all the data for underdog, right? But we can't really make huge proclamations about these kind of things on DraftKings, but I think it's directionally accurate when you see like, okay, across my small sample of drafts, this has never ever happened. I think it doesn't mean it's never happened in any drafts, because I'm sure it has, but it means it's generally speaking probably a lower owned thing. What time do you expect the schedule leaks to start tomorrow? It'll start leaking out all day long. It's so lame. It's the dumbest. The NFL treats the schedule stuff like it's, well, frankly, like they treat their own NFL draft. Like, it's so bizarre. Just drop it all at once. Why do it? And one reporter leaks one game and another reporter leaks another game. And it's like, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I understand they've released like the international games, and so there's rhyme or reason to that. But like, why? Like, oh, so-and-so plays so-and-so in week 7. Rematch of a good game from last year. Like, and that's like the first game that will leak. It's like some random ass week 7 game. Oh, the Jags and the Titans are playing Thursday Night Football in week 13. Everybody excited? Like, no, I'm not. Why? Just tell me this fucking schedule. All 17 games. Or go week by week, something, not this random shit. It's like they're just throwing darts at a dartboard. They're like, okay, do that. Now we got to do week 13, Jags, Titans. Throw another one. Okay, week 6, Niners, Cardinals. Like, who gives a fuck? Just release the whole thing. It's a schedule. Not the goddamn cure for cancer. Like, what are we doing? I will definitely check it out. Solo says, the $100 3 max is awesome. Phenomenal tournament. One of the best tournaments in best ball for sure. And then this $10 10 max is pretty sick. I will say they did a really good job of these newer contests. Nothing is ever perfect, I understand, but they did do a good job. I think Underdog is doing a pretty good job of tournament stuff this year. I don't know if it's necessity or just overall creativity or whatever. I think they're doing a good job. And this is why, like, the whole monologue at the beginning about DraftKings and about sort of the evolution of the industry over the last few years is like you're seeing Underdog do some different things. They launched a Superflex tournament already. They're like randomly launching these like little $2 and $3 stuff. They're launching some new different things because DraftKings is putting their fucking feet to the fire. They never felt not they were innovating 3-4 years ago, but they never felt like they spoke about how confident they were that they were the leader, in fantasy football. $33% burden with AJ Brown? Yeah, with AJ Brown. I'm gonna do Scataboo. Sort of. Now that's not a weak superhero. It's a slow superhero. He's like, what's the X-Men guy that has all this shit all over him? He's super strong. He runs through walls and stuff. Whatever that guy is, that's Scataboo. DK hates releasing contests until the previous ones are filled. Yeah, that's true. And that can be a little annoying, but they also give us this huge menu, which is nice. Again, underdog's doing good job too. This is a great time to be a best ball player. Sort of the fact that DraftKings is putting this pressure on underdog, and underdogs in a little bit more of a precarious situation than they were 4 years ago or whatever, is like this stuff's good for the consumer. Competition, it's good. Can't wait for the schedule. Going to change my teams for sure. We'll definitely talk plenty about that tomorrow. Ooh, Kevin says, what is your favorite buy low team stack? Buy low. That is a great question. So I'm going to give a couple different answers, and that's cheating. The weirdest one, because the actual if you want to stack the team, it is not cheap. But I think you can use Mendoza, like Mendoza, Naylor, Trey Tucker, Michael Mayer, Mike Washington, like avoiding the Genty and Bowers parts. Now, those are the most powerful parts of the Raiders offense, and there's no denying that. But the entire rest of the offense, including the quarterback, who's the number 1 overall pick, I'm sort of flummoxed by the Mendoza price, if I'm being honest. Number 1 overall pick, has some rushing juice. We're excited enough for the Raiders with Clint Kubiak that Genty off a bad year is still going in the first round, and Bowers is going off a bad year is going in the second round. Trust me, I like both of them. I draft a bunch of both of them. But the number 1 overall pick at quarterback, again, which has some dual threat ability, is like one of the last starting quarterbacks drafted, because I guess, Kirk Cousins, right, it would be the explanation. That's what someone would say is 100% of my 100% of my CD teams have Terry. What the hell? CD, AJ Brown, Bowers, and Scat. What about a running back here? How about DeAndre Swift? Someone I almost never take, but I want to try to vary some things up a little bit here. But so, like, are they really going to start Kirk Cousins all year, all season with the number 1 overall pick? Is that the concern? I guess. I don't know. It feels like a pretty good spot to buy into the market being really, really worried again, if this was a different year, this was a few years ago, where like we used to have, man, in best ball, we used to have, like, I drafted 50% Sam fucking Howell one year because that dude was going in like the 17th round of drafts. He sucks, but he put up a bunch of fantasy points in huge games because he threw the ball downfield. He was in a fun offense and he ran the football. Now, he's never going to be an NFL quarterback again, but it was successful. That was one of my best years, drafting 50% Sam Howell. Some people probably never even heard of fucking Sam Howell. We used to have those kind of guys. Cheap, right? Now we talked about the Cardinals before. Brissett, Aaron Rodgers, who is technically not even in the NFL right now. Is Brissett even going to play all year? Is Brissett even the starter? Geno, right? You talked about the Jets being the Eternals. And Geno's the epitome of that. It's like, he's like not bad, but are they going to start Geno all year? I don't know. So there's really nothing at cheap quarterback except smack dab in the 160s is the guy who just went first overall in the fucking NFL draft. That's crazy. Feels like a good buying opportunity, regardless of all the issues. I'm well aware of Kirk Cousins' existence and Mendoza's not your typical first overall pick, blah, 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 blah. But yeah. Also, yes, that's who I was talking about. Juggernaut. Thank you. That's Scattaboo, right? Scattaboo is Juggernaut for sure. Big, dumb, runs through walls with his head first. Yeah. Yeah, Jets. I have definitely done the Jets. I like the Jets one. I like the Titans. Now, Carnell Tate's a little bit more expensive, but there's a bunch of different things you can do with Cam Ward, whether it's Wandale or Gunnar Helm or Ridley, Tyjae, Pollard, right? Those guys are pretty cheap. Bo Nix plus Pat Bryant. Jordan Love and a couple of his pass catchers are both right there. Reed and Golden and Kraft, technically. Kyler, Hawkinson, Juwan Jennings. You can toss in a running back, Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason. I mean, I need to do some Malik Willis with some of these crappy Dolphins wide receivers. Oops. See, like this is tootin'. 75% of my Bowers teams and 100% of my Bowers AJ Brown teams have him. So let's do Parker, Washington. Gives me Lawrence outs at the next turn here. So I can take a falling Daniels. I can take Caleb with Swift if I wanted to. But gives me a bunch of, as you see, like one of the beauties of the draft hacker, Caleb Williams, orange. Jalen Hurts, orange. Dak Prescott, orange. Now, Jalen Hurts is orange because technically AJ Brown is still on the Eagles, so it kind of doesn't count. But Dak, Lawrence, Dart, right? So showing me my correlations, so I don't have to think too hard. And that's difficult for me sometimes. Brissett starts 16 games. Cardinals will be the team to have. 20-point per game quarterback just sitting at 155. But obviously the Cardinals are an unserious franchise, so who knows? 100%. That's the only... If you told me... If you guaranteed me Jacoby Brissett starts every game for the Cardinals... I'm trying to think of what I would do. I mean, I would definitely draft... I'm going to draft Trey McBride, but I'm sort of waiting to see where the price settles. I'd definitely draft more Love, Jeremiah Love. The wide receivers I'm going to draft, but not crazy, and I think I would still be pretty similar. But it would certainly be, like, part of the issue is, like, I don't think Minshew is even as good as Brissett. I definitely don't think Carson Beck is. They're definitely going to be a mess as an NFL team. I mean, even if they're improved, look at the division. Seattle won the Super Bowl. The Rams were basically the second best team in the NFL. And the 49ers are not exactly like a total slouch. They kind of make the playoffs most years. So it's going to be very tough for the Cardinals in that division to take a step forward with the roster that they have. I like Carolina. Frank Reich is just such a donkey. That is true. Mendoza, Bryce Young, and Cam Ward. There's the... we're going to come up with a name for that one. Like we did the Triple H last year of the running back stuff. Okay, hold on. Of course Ramondre's here now. Oh, fucking course he is. Let's do Lawrence on this team with Parker. So that's 1-2-3-1 build. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end through 7 rounds. CeeDee Lamb, Brock Bowers, AJ Brown, Cam Scattaboo, DeAndre Swift, Parker Washington, and Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, I need to come up with the trio of number 1 picks. Like all these underwhelming, right? Number 1 picks: Bryce Young, Cam Ward, and Fernando Mendoza. But stack them all on the same teams and stack them up with they're also all probably being carried. Like they may not actually be good, but the Panthers kind of have some fun weapons. And you're like, how do I manufacture? I'm into this now. Panthers, Raiders. I'm trying to think about how you put the Panthers, Raiders, and who was the other one? Titans. Oh yeah, the 3 Amigo. The Three Stooges. The Three Stooges. the seventh place. The seventh place. Yeah, call this one the seventh place. But so you draft one of or both Genty Bowers, right? And then T-Mac. And then Tate goes what, in the 60s? Yeah. And then so Tate in the 5th, 6th. That still gives you some flexibility. Wandale is, pick 100. Coker is what, pick 120. If you want to, Chuba or Brooks are pretty easily available. But you definitely got to plan ahead, right? And this is why the whole I just let drafts come to I just let the room come to me is okay, but also bullshit. I'll do Dart here. Oh God, no, maybe not. 100% of my CD teams have Dart. What the hell? Okay, let's look at this. Let's buy the Bears backfield. How about that? Swift Monungai. That one, another one, by the way, that worked very well last year. When Swift missed some time, Monungai went ham. Monungai had useful games. Swift had useful games. Again, another way to sort of manufacture running back production when you're a little bit weaker, right? Scatterby RB1 is fine, but just locking in the Bears backfield at RB2, flex, whatever, pretty nice. Let's see. I'm interested in late quarterbacks and tight ends in this draft. They were falling like crazy in the first draft. Okay. Mendoza almost made it to 200 and Rogers fell to the 19th round. I took Hawk 25 picks after ADP begrudgingly. And see, I like Hawkinson, so it wouldn't be begrudgingly for me. Curious why the ADP value of Dart didn't override wanting 100%. I think that's a coin flip. I think it's a total coin flip. It's a good question. His ADP is sorry. His ADP is 89 and he went, I would have taken him. Oh, his ADP is 89. Is that right? Yeah, DraftKings. His ADP is 89, and I would have taken him at 92, right? So unless our ADP is slow updating over on Draft IQ, then it wasn't a big screamer. Anyway, it was correlation with Cam Scatterby, but I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those answers. Just taking him and dealing with the fact that you currently, right in this moment, have 100% of him with CD, and I think it's totally fine. Trying to see if there's anything I can do to set up a quarterback. Not really. Oh God. Okay, what about a backstack of a quarterback? Let's try the Kyler one. Lawrence Parker. I'm going to need another tight end. Hawkinson. I haven't taken much Juwan yet. I don't know if I've taken Juwan on DraftKings yet. Yeah, see, now here's where I will really override, where I kind of need the stack, and even though I have 100% of them with CD, I would override that. But it's sort of that you kind of have to play that balancing act in your head there's no right or wrong answer on that's why when people say what's a hierarchy for the decisions and all that kind of stuff, it's you're balancing a bunch of different things all at the same time. Neither is right or wrong, right? Do I take the ADP value here, or do I take the correlation? Do I take the portfolio aspect or the correlation, or I really need a running back here, or whatever, right? You're basically, every time you're on the clock, you have 10 competing ideas that are in your brain around this specific pick that you could go in a bunch of different directions, and none of them are really wrong. But we try to, I try to think from back to front, and I try to think about my portfolio probably more than the average person does. So I do tend to skew that way a little bit more. Where's the second half of the best picks at each position video? It's being recorded tomorrow, and it will be out on Saturday. It's a great question. Same in underdogs. Those, I think people have more confidence in picks and are wanting to take them above the quarterbacks. Feels like sliding time. I like it. Yeah, Dart's falling, which is kind of funny. I'm going to have plenty of Jackson Dart. I'll tell you that much. Just buy the quarterback room and take Jameis for when Dart gets his inevitable concussion. Dart plus Jameis and Scadaboo plus Tracy on the same team. Is that probably the way to go, I guess? Not Jawan yet. I need to get some more Gainwell, and I don't really have him with any of these guys. I don't know if you saw the shout out to Coach Speak Index. You'll hear that a lot over the course of the summer if you're new here. Highly recommend. Greg's Discord does an awesome job of getting coach quotes, GM quotes, all that different kind of stuff out there. A lot of it is not even not even out there in an article or on Twitter or anything like that. It's the best place to get. That's where I go for all my, I stopped doom scrolling on social media to find clips and quotes and stuff like that. I just use Coach Speak Index. But anyway, there's been some good stuff about Kenny Gainwell. I mentioned the Ted Hurst stuff in the last draft. There's been some intriguing stuff out of Bucks camp. Who will be the biggest ADP riser from today until August? So it's got to be somebody late. A veteran is a good, DG says Tyreek Hill. A veteran who signs, Diggs. What's Diggs ADP? 152. Diggs is a pretty good bet. I would say Diggs. Here. Diggs, I'm going to toss a couple. You choose. Stephon Diggs. Tyreek, if he were to sign. Ayuk is a good one. The chat mentions Ayuk. I'm going to toss my guy Malik Davis into the ring. Ryan Flanoy has already moved up a good chunk. Otherwise, he would be in contention. Let's see. Dontavian Wicks, when A.J. Brown officially gets traded, will rise, even though it should already be assumed that he's the wide receiver 3 / whatever you want to call in the Eagles offense. Those are my nominees. Keenan, yeah, the veteran guys are definitely good. They're just like always good bets to rise, I think. Do I do Mason or C-Rod? Let's do Chris Rodriguez. I know he's not really a pass catcher, but I kind of like that, actually. I mean, I don't like that he doesn't catch passes on DraftKings. Let's not get it twisted. But from like a team stacking perspective, the ping pong potential of like, oh my God, Chris Rodriguez had 3 rushing touchdowns this weekend. So like, oh shoot, Lawrence and Parker didn't do anything. And then, right, this is a scenario type stuff. But Kyler, that's the week that Kyler is going to go ham as a passer. And that's how did you get the low-owned Lawrence to Parker Washington stack to week 17? It's by having Chris Rodriguez on that team. And they can sort of ping pong stuff during the regular season, right? How did you advance that team? Well, sort of some weeks Trevor Lawrence to Parker, some weeks Chris Rodriguez is scoring a couple touchdowns or having 100 yards or whatever. Ping pong is a wildly important element of this game, the layering of points. Let's see. Jonathan Brooks, if he has 2 knees, he says, Hunter after Parker traded for a 5th. They're not trading Parker Washington for a 5th round pick. I'll tell you that much. Here's a fun one. Where does Parker Washington rank? Where did Parker Washington rank in 2025 among all receivers in yards per route run? Guess. Let's just do, how many targets should we do? 50? 50 targets. 50 targets. No, this is PFF receiving grade. It's not everything. 9th in PFF receiving grade, ahead of AJ Brown, ahead of Zay Flowers, ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of Chris Olave. And in yards per route run, he was 13th. Ahead of Rashee Rice, ahead of the aforementioned Diggs and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Justin Jefferson and Teteroa McMillan, Parker Washington. That's where Parker Washington ranked in sort of, grading and efficiency metrics. Here's another example of the purchasing of the backfield, or not purchasing of the backfield, stacking that guy with the quarterback. So let's do Juwan. I see Juwan on my screen. Let's do Jordan Mason. It says Tyreek has avoided the second surgery and is ahead of schedule. If reports come out saying Neighbors goes to the PUP list, Fields goes to the moon. Yeah. What would be funny is I'm pretty low on Malachi Fields as a prospect, but the alternatives are not great, obviously. I don't want Neighbors go on the PUP list, but I do sort of welcome negative news about Malik Neighbors so I can buy the dip and just take a big old stand on Malik Neighbors. Okay. I have Bowers. I've already stacked. I think this needs to be Hawk and not Strange, just because I already have stacking partner in from a real pass catcher and with Lawrence, right? I already have Parker Washington. With Kyler, all I have thus far is Jordan Mason. And so I'm going to side with the quarterback, the tight end of the quarterback who I don't have a stack with yet. But I'm awfully light at 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. It's funny to start with 3 wide receivers. So 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds, 3 wide receivers in the first 6, but we haven't drafted another wide receiver since. So both, I mean, I'm set up if I want to take, I think I'll probably take 9, 2, 7, 9, 2. Stick to it with Bowers. Gives me the luxury of sticking with 2 tight ends. What a team this is. I mean, what is the explanation that the Jags trade any of their wide receivers? They're trying to win the Super Bowl. I'm not particularly interested in getting into the Travis Hunter debate again, but he's going to start and play starter snaps at corner and mix in on offense, right? And they have 3 good wide receivers, all on reasonable contracts. Why? And they nearly won a playoff. They probably should have won a playoff game last year. And they're trying to win the Super Bowl. Why would you trade Parker? Why would you trade your best wide receiver in his prime? I don't really get it. Same thing and Brian Thomas, people are like, well, why won't you trade Brian Thomas? What the hell happened to market value? Brian Thomas is at the absolute basement price from a market sentiment perspective, and people are like, they should trade him. It's do you guys sell all your stock every time it dips? You turn in your 401k when it goes down to its basement price? No. And maybe you do. But we're supposed to buy low and sell high. And I feel so. Parker Washington, you could say, is a sell high. I could at least get behind that. But now with Brian Thomas Jr. and with Parker Washington, it's like, well, he's really good. So why are we selling really good players? Sell the dip. There you go. The Brian Thomas Jr. story. Sell the dip. Let's see. Awfully weak at wide receiver on this team. 163. There's Ayuk. Boston. Let's do. I don't have Ayuk yet. I do agree he's a potential big riser when he does, if and when he does end up on the Commanders. Will Howard, there's a name for ADP risers. I want to draft Giants wide receivers, just really crowded. Yeah, Mooney, Fields, Slayton, Hodgins is back, right? It's weird. That's why let's just have a healthy Malik Neighbors and let him ball out. Isaiah Likely, of course, is tight end, not a wide receiver, but he's a tight end there now. Champion says Keenan is being undrafted right now, isn't he? That is correct. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. If you are a Spike Week Premium member and you are in the Spike Week Discord, just a friendly reminder that Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern is when we have what we call our lab, the lab. Every week, 6 p.m. Eastern, get together in a voice/video chat channel in the Discord and chop it up about whatever is interesting to us, right? Sometimes it's news. Sometimes it's people come with different ideas, different questions. It's really, really helpful. If I don't get, hold on, 195. What's my next pick? 187. Okay, let's try to get Stribling and somebody else here. You can't re-sign everyone. Parker is an unrestricted free agent next year, and turning a late pick wide receiver dart into a valuable pick. Yeah, but turning a late pick wide receiver dart into a valuable pick is what you did by drafting Parker Washington. He's a free agent after this season, for sure. You can't re-sign everyone. But isn't that the point of having Brian Thomas Jr. on a cheap contract and Travis Hunter on a cheap contract and some of the defenders they've drafted on cheap contracts? Isn't part of that, right? So let Jacoby Myers go. What's Jacoby Myers' contract? Jacoby Myers' contract. So he's got 3. When can they get out of the Jacoby business? After 2027, 11 million in dead cap, but still. What's he making? What's the cap hit? Nothing this year. And trust me, if I were playing Madden, I'm all about sell. Like, I do generally agree. I'm down to sell guys before it gets bad, or just selling right what might be the top on a player like Parker Washington. I think it's totally reasonable. I just think it goes against NFL idea. Like again, if I were playing Madden, because I know I can still have a good right, but the real world doesn't work like that. If you sell Parker Washington, what are you doing with your wide receiver room this year? He's your best, and Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter now has to play both ways, or you're going to move him back to wide receiver? Well, now your corners are really bad. Is he going to play every snap on both sides of the football? He wasn't able to hold up to that last year, it's you get the extra asset for the future for sure. But what good does that do you if you don't win now? From the NFL perspective, right? Again, not from like how you and I might build teams. Yeah, they paid Jacoby what they should have paid Parker. The Jacoby contract was silly. Very silly. Damn. See, I wanted to get Stribling and Flanoy, but who took him? Moxie. I see that this was I should have known. Gotta know your room. Idiot. Let's lean into some of the rookie stuff. Chris Bell, CD, AJ Brown, Parker Washington, Ayuk, Stribling, and Chris Bell. Jeez. We're gonna have some fun. What's Parker still on his rookie deal? Yeah. Yeah, they definitely should have paid him and not Jacoby Myers. It's fun to talk about, though. Like, trust me, no one is more interested in these kinds of conversations than me. It's one of I'm a total nerd about like team building and salary cap and asset usage, like too much so sometimes. You want to maximize all your assets and you want to, build the team as best as possible, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think specifically in a Parker Washington type situation that it's realistic for an NFL team to do that. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but we tend to think about it in that way in the fantasy world, both like fantasy world, like this is not reality, and fantasy world, like fantasy football, which also is not reality, and be like, oh, well, maybe they'll trade Brian Thomas. Maybe they'll trade Parker Washington. And it's like the NFL team they've never even fucking considered it. They have no interest in doing that. But we see like, well, you could trade him for a second round pick, or he's going to be a free agent. And the NFL team's like, we'll fucking figure that out. We're trying to win the Super Bowl. Like, we don't care about you nerds. You guys play your games on your spreadsheets, and we're trying to go win football games. It's how they tend to think about it. I'm just trying to make Josh Cameron a thing. That's funny. I have a few too many tabs open now. These tabbies. All right, let's see. Back on the clock. I don't hate the idea of taking Christian Kirk and Stribling together. Let's do that. Christian Kirk and Stribling together. So, like, this team is a little bit light on wide receivers, and I'm going to take a bunch of, like, sort of flyer, right? I mean, Ayuk, Stribling, Chris Bell. We'll see how that looks. And that's wide receiver 4, 5, 6 on this team. I'm not saying Christian Kirk is going to be the guy out of the gate, but it sure helps alleviate some pressure on when Stribling is starting to score points for this particular team. There's plenty of other teams that I'll draft that like he's wide receiver 7 or 8 or whatever. So who gives a fuck? But on this team, I kind of need like sort of I'm buying the 49ers wide receiver 3. Right? Not buying a backfield, but I'm buying the Niners wide receiver 3 for pick 15 plus pick 17. I think just about any year, if you did that, you'd probably be in pretty good shape. Now, am I really buying the wide receiver? I don't know, but that's the hope. Who is the best wide receiver 3 to take for the Bengals? Oh, God. Well, I'm not a big Colby Young guy. So for anybody that wants to know why this question is interesting, obviously Andre Yoshivas has been the guy that has been a pretty useless wide receiver 3 for years. Jermaine Burton is now gone, and they drafted Colby Young. Mitchell Tinsley came on a little bit for them last year, but my current expectation is it's going to be a toss-up between Yoshi, Tinsley, and Colby Young. If I were a betting man, here's what I'll say. Yoshi is the incumbent. Joe Burrow likes Mitchell Tinsley. Go look that up. He fought for him to be on the roster. Tinsley got to play some last year. We almost hit some insane ladder bets on Mitchell Tinsley last year. What year or what week was that? Hold on. There was a week he had like 1 million targets, 9 targets. Yeah. We lost our bets. But in this week, I'll never forget it. T was out or Chase was out. One of them was out. And we laddered up Mitchell Tinsley props, and he got 9 fucking targets and only caught 2 passes. But I would put my money between Yoshi and Tinsley. Jesus Christ. Why could I not think of that? Zachariah Branch, there's another rookie. A little bit better on DraftKings.com with his sort of slot yak screen catching ability. And obviously, I'm swinging for a good chunk of rookie ceiling with some of these late picks because not the world's greatest wide receiver room after those top 3, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Parker Washington. But Scattaboo and bought the Bears backfield, Gainwell, C-Rod, Jordan Mason. I will say I do not hate this team. It makes me awfully uncomfortable at the wide receiver position. But as we say, get comfortable being uncomfortable, especially in the best ball streets. Deadhead bought the Jets backfield. What could go wrong? Exactly. The Eternals. When you bought the Eternals backfield, probably not great. Warehouse is still stranded on Yoshi Island. Can't blame you. I had a whole boatload of Yoshi. It was really fun. The Yoshi year. Does ESPN have it year by year? No. Jesus Christ. Oh, stats. Yeah. So in 2024, we drafted a whole boatload of Yoshi. Dude played every single game, only got 61 targets, but he would catch a touchdown so much more frequently than he should. It might have even been 2023, but the last couple of seasons, he's just like running so pure on touchdowns. Damn, Wicks goes, Fields goes. I'm gonna keep taking my guy Malik because I got something coming out on that. I have a couple guys, a video incoming that I'm scripting and stuff right now for a few players that I'm comfortable drafting on every single team right now, and Malik Davis is one of them. Thoughts on the San Francisco backup running back? I still. If you put a gun to my head, I might sneeze here in just a second, so I apologize. If you put a gun to my head, I would still take Jordan James. But the draft muddied that up. It's like in most situations, with Jordan James having done nothing, Garendo really having done nothing since a little blip on the radar a couple of years ago, and then the team drafting Kalen Black as high as they did. Generally, even though I strongly dislike Kalen Black, and most people that I respect from the prospect perspective dislike Kalen Black and think it's absurd that the 49ers took him there. If it weren't the 49ers, we would mostly be like, well, I think it's Kalen Black. So part of me says I should just suck it up and draft Kalen Black to be that guy. But I think he stinks. I think the 49ers have been so woefully bad at drafting running back prospects that they haven't given me. So here I'm going to take Brazel as an example. Like the last draft. Oh, why did you take Hurst over Brazel? So now I can still get a Brazel share today. But you see, I have 5% Brazel and like none of him on any of these teams. I think he's a really good fit on this particular team needing some late wide receiver, just like pure, unadulterated juice, given sort of my weakness at the wide receiver position. But I still think I would like to bet on Jordan James. The 49ers track record of Trey Sermon and frankly, Jordan James himself didn't do anything. Granted, he was a 5th round pick. Garendo, Joe Williams, like all of these guys that Shanahan is infatuated with at the running back position that they overdraft, like just never works. It never works. And Kalen Black fits that mold of a bad prospect that they overdrafted. So like I said, gun to my head right now, I'll still take Jordan James, but I don't think it's unreasonable to take Kalen Black. I'm personally, I have my optimizer settings for Jordan James a little too high. I'm going to back that down quite a bit, but then that's one of the situations, perfect sort of thing to close on. We get the schedule released tomorrow. We're going to have OTAs and camp coming very, very soon. There are situations like that I'm mostly passing on right now. And I'm going to be keeping my eyes and ears peeled to wait and see for news when camp comes around. And as soon as we start to get some rumblings like, oh man, I think Jordan James, the RB2, we're going to be hammering that, right? Or we start to read the tea leaves. We start to, Kyle Shanahan's like, oh man, this guy's looking really good, blah, blah, blah. Then I want to start to pounce on those things, but I don't have a lot of comfort yet in several different backfields, and San Francisco is one of them. All right, real quick, last draft. If you did not get a chance to draft with us today, if you guys could hit thumbs up before you guys leave, that'd be really, really helpful. Subscribe to the channel. We did cross our 4,000 subscriber goal, which I really appreciate you guys for that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week, 11 a.m. Eastern. You can come join me here. We'll be drafting, riffing on whatever subject. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the playoff schedule, week 17. It won't be out tomorrow morning, but we're going to talk about, okay, when it comes out, what should we be thinking about? Then we'll have Freestyle Friday where we'll draft some fun week 17 and playoff correlation stuff here on the channel. CeeDee Lamb pulled up. CeeDee Lamb took him with a unique start. Brock Bowers and A.J. Brown. Cam Scatteroo, DeAndre Swift, Parker Washington, stacked him with Trevor Lawrence. Kyle Monungai to buy the Chicago Bears backfield. Something I don't think I've done yet this year. Kyler Murray, Kenny Gainwell, Chris Rodriguez, and Jordan Mason, the two like thumper, goal line, physical, non-pass catching backs on our stacks. Sort of a fun little negative correlation. TJ Hawkinson to go with the Vikings stack. Brandon Ayuk, then we're behind at wide receiver, even though we took some early ones. Brandon Ayuk, Dejon Stribling, Chris Bell, Christian Kirk, Zachariah Branch, Malik Davis, and Chris Brazel to close this team out. Thank you guys for joining. Again, if you could hit thumbs up on the way out, I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Subscribe, blah, blah, blah. All that fun stuff. Get ready for the schedule drop. Go enjoy those new DraftKings tournaments that are out there, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.